Imagine spending years mastering a trade just to have a homeowner scream at you because their lamp is not working while it is clearly unplugged. We are looking at 55 of the most brain-melting, logic-defying complaints ever filed with home repair services in America. These stories prove that common sense is practically extinct in the suburbs. From people who do not understand gravity to those who think their plumber is a wizard, get ready for a masterclass in human absurdity. 1. Imagine being so good at your job that it actually causes a lawsuit. A professional window cleaner in Chicago was sued because the glass was too clean, leading the homeowner's husband to walk straight into a closed sliding door. The wife claimed that by removing every speck of dust, the cleaner had created a transparent death trap for the family. She demanded the company return and apply a layer of visible grime so people would know where the house ended and the yard began. Is it even possible to be overqualified for cleaning? 2. A plumber in Seattle once responded to a call about a garbage disposal that sounded like a construction site. Upon arrival, the technician pulled out 3 mangled silver spoons and a nickel from the drain. Instead of being embarrassed, the homeowner was furious that the blades were not strong enough to pulverize solid metal without making a noise. She argued that for a $500 sink, the machine should be able to handle a little accidental cutlery. Her formal complaint stated the appliance lacked discretion and finesse during its operation. 3. Tech support specialists have seen it all, but wrapping a router in heavy-duty aluminum foil really takes the prize. A woman called to complain her internet was dead, unaware her husband had decided the silver box looked too ugly for their new kitchen aesthetic. By creating a literal Faraday cage, they managed to block every single signal in the house. Rather than admitting the mistake, she demanded a wireless signal powerful enough to blast through solid metal. Some people truly believe that technology is just magic and physics is a mere suggestion. 4. An appliance repair shop once dealt with a ticket where a woman claimed her new refrigerator was making ice that felt too cold. This was not a joke. Her argument was that the cubes were hurting her teeth, unlike her old fridge which supposedly produced soft, lukewarm ice. Standing there with a straight face, the technician had to explain that the freezing point of water is a fixed physical constant. How do you even begin to negotiate with a person who wants their frozen water to be served at room temperature? 5. A landscaping company in Florida received a scathing review because the grass they planted had the nerve to grow. The homeowner was outraged that he had to mow the lawn every week and insisted on a special version of Bermuda grass that stayed exactly 2 inches tall forever. He honestly thought professional sod was a one-time installation like a plastic rug. After being told that plants are living organisms, he accused the workers of selling him high-maintenance seeds to fund the lawnmower industry. Are we reaching a point where people are actually annoyed that nature exists? 6. A repairman in Michigan once found a dishwasher stuffed with wool sweaters and heavy denim jeans. The homeowner was absolutely furious that the machine had shrunk her favorite outfit, claiming the user manual clearly said it was a washing machine. Technically, she was correct, but she completely missed the part where it specifically washes dishes, not the laundry. Rather than apologizing for the mistake, she demanded the technician pay her dry cleaning bill because the labeling was too ambiguous. It is truly a mystery how some people navigate adulthood without a full-time supervisor. 7. Safety is usually the top priority for homeowners, unless you are the lady in Georgia who hated the sound of her smoke detector. During a minor burnt toast incident, she filed a complaint stating the piercing alarm was a violation of her right to a peaceful environment. Her demand was for a model that would play smooth jazz or send a gentle vibration to her phone instead of waking the neighbors. Apparently, she was more concerned about the decibel level than the fact that her kitchen was actively filling with smoke. Would you choose a silent house over a loud life-saving siren? 8. A handyman was called out to fix a front door because the owner claimed the peephole was only 4 feet off the ground. Looking at the situation for 2 seconds, the professional realized the guy had installed the entire door upside down during a DIY weekend. Instead of laughing it off, the homeowner doubled down and blamed the manufacturer for not including a giant sticker pointing to the top. He spent an hour arguing that the design was a form of discrimination against tall people who cannot crawl into their own homes. 9. Texas heat is no joke, but one homeowner tried to make his air conditioner fight the entire atmosphere. He left all his windows and doors wide open in July and then called for a repair because the house was not staying cool. His logic was that a 5-ton unit should be powerful enough to chill his entire yard if he felt like it. The technician was threatened with a lawsuit because the machine could not defeat the laws of thermodynamics. Do you think people who leave the door open with the AC on should pay a stupidity tax on their electric bill? 10. Imagine the confusion of a plumber who was summoned because a toilet was allegedly laughing at its owner. The customer was convinced the porcelain throne had been programmed with a mocking sound effect that triggered every time he used it. A quick inspection revealed a small plastic whistle stuck in the rim that hummed whenever the water flushed. Even after the object was removed, the man remained paranoid that the toilet was recording his private moments for a government database. If your appliances started talking back to you tomorrow, which one would have the most embarrassing dirt on you? 11. Down in Arizona, an electrician had to explain the concept of nighttime to a man who was furious about his solar panels. The formal complaint stated the system was a total scam because the electricity stopped flowing the moment the sun went down. This guy expected his roof to suck up moonlight or perhaps just operate on pure vibes until morning. Even after a lecture on renewable energy, the homeowner screamed that his old flashlight worked in the dark, so the panels had no excuse. It is terrifying that people this confused are allowed to own property. 12. A plumber in Ohio once walked into a perfectly dry kitchen only to be greeted by a very angry homeowner. Instead of pointing to a leak, she demanded he use his professional intuition to sense where the moisture was hiding. This lady genuinely believed a $80 service call turned a regular contractor into a supernatural tracking dog. When he asked for a single clue, she accused him of being a fraud who lacked a basic connection to the pipes. Do you think some people honestly treat repairmen like they are psychics instead of actual technicians? 13. A technician in Maine dealt with an elderly man who complained his heater was attacking him. Whenever the furnace kicked on, the man felt a suspiciously warm breeze that he interpreted as a malfunction. He wanted the house to stay at exactly 72 degrees without the furnace ever actually blowing hot air. The homeowner suggested the heat should just manifest through the walls like a cozy aura, rather than moving through the vents. Some people really want the laws of thermodynamics to operate on a vibes-only basis. 14. Safety features are usually a selling point, but not for a guy in Nevada who hated his garage door sensors. He filed a complaint because the door refused to close while his golden retriever was napping in the driveway. His logic was that the door should be smart enough to know the difference between a car and a beloved pet. The repairman had to explain that a sensor is a binary laser, not a sentient animal psychologist with a moral compass. 15. An exterminator in Georgia received a hilarious complaint after successfully clearing a massive cockroach infestation. The client was angry because the dead bugs were cluttering the floor and looked unprofessional. She expected the poison to make the insects march out of the house and find a dignified place to die in the woods. When the technician suggested using a broom, she argued that cleaning up the bodies was part of the chemical process she paid for. Do you think service workers should be responsible for the afterlife logistics of the pests they kill? 16. A woman in California called a repair service because her microwave failed to cook a 20-pound Thanksgiving turkey in under 10 minutes. She was convinced the high-power setting meant it would operate at the speed of a particle accelerator. When the bird came out raw in the middle and like rubber on the outside, she blamed the defective radiation for ruining her holiday. She spent 30 minutes demanding a refund for the turkey, the microwave, and her shattered reputation as a hostess. 17. There is a legendary service report from a technician who was summoned to fix a broken light switch in a basement. The homeowner claimed that every time he flipped the switch down, the room became unacceptably dark. He honestly believed there was a middle setting that would provide twilight without him having to buy a dimmer switch. The guy was convinced the electricity was being stolen by the house when the lights were off. It is hard to fix a problem when the issue is a basic misunderstanding of how light works. 18. A repairman in Tennessee arrived at a house that looked like a foam party because the owner used Dawn dish soap in the dishwasher. Bubbles were pouring out of the vents and covering the kitchen floor, yet the homeowner blamed the machine for overreacting. She claimed the dishwasher had a bad attitude and was spitting at her out of spite. Even after being shown the warning on the door, she insisted the appliance should be smart enough to handle any soap she threw at it. 19. One interior designer was nearly sued over a luxury shag carpet because it showed footprints after someone walked on it. The client was livid, arguing that for $10,000, the fibers should have memory and spring back instantly like a magical forest floor. She claimed the evidence of human movement made her house look like a crime scene. She demanded a carpet that was both fluffy and immune to the weight of a human body. What is the most ridiculous thing you have ever heard someone complain about regarding luxury items? 20. A homeowner in New York called a technician because her smart fridge was bullying her by suggesting she buy more kale. The appliance was programmed to track inventory, and since she kept ignoring the vegetable drawer, it sent her a notification about healthy choices. She filed a complaint, claiming the fridge was fat-shaming her, and demanded the software be replaced with a more supportive personality that did not judge her for buying 3 gallons of ice cream. Living in the future sounds great until your kitchen starts giving you lifestyle advice. 21. A pool technician in Florida once got a call from a woman who was furious that her pool water level rose after a massive thunderstorm. She actually demanded a refund for the chemical balancing because the sky had diluted her expensive chlorine. Her logic was that the pool cover should have been waterproof enough to deflect a hurricane. When the tech explained that water is a liquid, she accused him of being in cahoots with the weather service. Some people truly believe that paying a monthly fee makes them immune to the water cycle. 22. A chimney sweep in Vermont dealt with a homeowner who filed a formal complaint because his wood-burning fireplace made the house smell like a campfire. The client was genuinely shocked that burning actual logs produced a smoky aroma. He expected the fireplace to filter the air and release a scent of lavender or expensive cologne instead. It is hard to wrap your head around someone who wants the aesthetic of a roaring fire without any of the fundamental characteristics of combustion. 23. A locksmith in Dallas was summoned by a guy who was locked out because his smart lock ran out of batteries after a year of use. The homeowner was screaming about a breach of trust, claiming the lock should have been loyal enough to let him in one last time. He refused to believe that electronics need power, insisting that for $300, the deadbolt should have a soul. Have you ever seen someone treat a piece of hardware like it owed them a personal favor? 24. After a massive roof replacement in Oregon, a couple complained that the new shingles were too loud during rainstorms. They claimed the previous roof was silent, probably because it was rotting and soaked in moss. They wanted the roofing company to come back and install a layer of sound-dampening foam over the entire exterior of the house. The technician had to explain that a metal roof in a rain-prone state generally results in the sound of a drum solo. 25. A security system installer dealt with a homeowner who was disappointed that her doorbell camera did not record any interesting crimes. She felt cheated because her neighbor's feed was full of package thieves, while her front porch was just boring footage of the mailman. She demanded a discount because the system failed to provide her with enough entertainment or neighborhood drama. Imagine paying for home security and then being upset that your house is actually safe. 26. An HVAC tech in Ohio spent an hour being interrogated by a woman who thought her thermostat was possessed by a ghost. The device kept changing from 68 to 72 degrees every morning at 6 o'clock. It turned out she had set a schedule 3 years ago and completely forgot how time works. Even after showing her the settings, she remained convinced that a spirit was trying to tell her to wear a sweater. It is amazing how often a user error is rebranded as a supernatural event. 27. A carpenter was called back to a luxury kitchen because the homeowner claimed the cabinet handles were crooked. He brought out a laser level to prove they were perfectly straight to the millimeter. The client then argued that they looked too straight, making the kitchen feel like a hospital. She wanted them slightly tilted to give the room a more organic and handmade vibe. Would you pay thousands of dollars for a professional just to ask them to intentionally mess up the final result? 28. A plumber in California was hired to install a high-pressure rainfall showerhead only to get a complaint that it was too wet. The customer was annoyed that the water came out in a wide spray and hit her hair when she only wanted to wash her feet. She expected the showerhead to have facial recognition software that would steer the water away from her expensive blowout. Some people really expect a $20 plumbing fixture to act like a personal assistant with a college degree. 29. Imagine calling a plumber because you think your house is haunted, only to find out you just have fancy sensors. A guy in New Jersey was convinced a spirit was using his guest bathroom because the toilet would flush whenever he walked past the door. The plumber discovered the motion sensor was set to a maximum range, reacting to every shadow in the hallway. The homeowner was actually disappointed to find out it was just a loose screw rather than a paranormal encounter. It seems some people find the idea of ghosts more comforting than the reality of a modern bathroom. 30. A landscaper in Virginia installed a beautiful bird feeder as part of a backyard renovation, only to receive a scathing email 2 weeks later. The client was livid because the feeder had attracted actual birds, which she found to be noisy and messy. She wanted a version of the feeder that only attracted quiet, polite birds that did not leave droppings on her patio furniture. If you could filter nature like a social media feed, what animal would you mute first? 31. After a painter spent 3 days applying a perfect coat of eggshell white, he got a frantic call about moving dark patches on the walls. Driving back to the house, he quickly realized the client was just looking at the shadows of trees blowing in the wind outside. Even when he physically blocked the light to show her the source, she insisted the paint was defective. Her brilliant solution was for him to repaint the entire room with a glow-in-the-dark additive to cancel out the sun. Imagine being so disconnected from reality that you try to sue the solar system. 32. Imagine the audacity of calling a handyman to complain that a light bulb burned out after 5 years of constant use. In North Carolina, a guy tried to sue a local hardware store because the lifetime warranty did not mean the bulb would glow until the heat death of the universe. He argued that as long as he was alive, the filament had a legal obligation to remain lit. The technician had to explain that a warranty covers manufacturing defects, not the basic laws of entropy. Why do people think a $10 purchase grants them eternal light? 33. Color perception can be tricky, but one woman in Colorado took it to a legal level after her walls changed shades. She was delighted with the soft blue during the day, but absolutely hated the moody purple it became under her warm evening lamps. Instead of simply changing her light bulbs, she accused the painter of using mood ring technology that reacted to her feelings. She insisted he repaint the room with a pigment that stayed blue regardless of the lighting conditions. Some homeowners really expect their walls to defy the physics of light reflection. 34. A flooring contractor in Georgia spent a week installing premium oak hardwood, only to have the client demand a full replacement. Her issue was that the wood contained actual knots and grain patterns, which she described as blemishes and defects. She wanted the floor to look like a perfectly smooth sheet of gray plastic while still being 100% natural timber. Even after explaining that trees have branches, she remained convinced the contractor had picked the ugliest trees in the forest just to spite her aesthetic. 35. An appliance technician in Ohio once dealt with a woman who wanted to return her brand-new convection oven because the handle felt warm. Her logic was that for $1,000, the heat should stay exclusively on the food and never travel to the metal exterior. She argued that the laws of heat transfer were a manufacturing defect that the company was hiding from the public. Standing there in shock, the repairman had to explain that if the oven stayed cool to the touch, her chicken would stay raw for eternity. 36. One attic insulation crew in Ohio was nearly reported to the police for littering inside a customer's ceiling. The homeowner climbed up a ladder, saw the fluffy pink fiberglass, and thought the workers had filled his house with giant piles of cotton candy to hide a leak. He was genuinely concerned about attracting ants and demanded they vacuum it all out and replace it with solid bricks. He could not grasp the concept that air trapped in fibers is what actually keeps the house warm and the electric bill low. 37. The classic childhood mystery of the refrigerator light staying on actually caused a mental breakdown for a man in Nevada. He filed a service request claiming his electricity bill was high because the light bulb never turned off when the door was closed. To prove his point, he drilled a hole through the side of a brand new $2,000 fridge just to peek inside. When the repairman arrived, he found a ruined appliance and a very proud man who finally solved the mystery. Do you think curiosity is always a virtue, or is it just a fast track to a huge repair bill? 38. A professional chef in New York once complained that her new gas stove was defective because the flames were blue instead of orange. She argued that blue is a cold color, so the stove could not possibly be heating her pans correctly. Despite the water boiling right in front of her, she insisted the heat felt psychological rather than physical. The technician had to give a chemistry lesson on complete combustion just to convince her she was not being gaslit by her own kitchen range. 39. A repairman in Kentucky was called because a washing machine was making a rhythmic thumping sound during the spin cycle. After opening the lid, he found a single heavy brick that the homeowner was trying to wash because it was dusty from the garden. She argued that since the machine was heavy-duty, it should be able to handle a little masonry without complaining. The homeowner was genuinely shocked that a spinning metal drum and a solid rock do not play well together during a high-speed cycle. 40. Doorbell cameras are supposed to provide peace of mind, but one woman in Florida complained her camera was too judgmental. She claimed the device made a specific clicking sound only when she came home with fast food bags, as if it were tutting at her diet. The technician found a loose plastic housing that rattled in the wind, but she remained convinced the AI was shaming her for her love of tacos. If your house started judging your late-night snacks, would you disable the cameras or change your diet? 41. A DIY enthusiast in Massachusetts tried to hang a heavy flat-screen TV on a thin sheet of drywall without using a single stud. Predictably, the whole thing crashed down within an hour, taking a massive chunk of the wall with it. Instead of admitting he skipped basic physics, the man called a contractor to complain that the house was built with substandard materials. He argued that a high-quality wall should be able to hold 50 pounds via sheer willpower and a couple of thumbtacks. Some people really believe that structural integrity is just a suggestion. 42. Modern luxury dishwashers are designed to be nearly silent, but that was a major problem for a homeowner in Chicago. She filed a service request claiming the machine was defective because she could not hear the water splashing from her living room. Even after the technician showed her a rack of sparkling clean plates, she insisted on a refund because the lack of noise made her feel lonely while doing chores. She actually wanted a louder, more obnoxious model just to feel like the house was working for her. Have you ever been so bored that you missed the sound of your appliances screaming for help? 43. One electrician in Pennsylvania was forced to return to a job site because the homeowner thought the outlets were upside down. In the United States, the ground hole can be on the top or bottom, but this lady was convinced that having the holes at the top made the outlet look like a sad face. She claimed the negative energy from the frown was making her coffee taste bitter and demanded all 20 outlets be flipped. Apparently, home maintenance is now a branch of spiritual psychology. 44. A professional mirror installer in Los Angeles once dealt with a client who complained her new vanity mirror was making her look older. She was dead serious when she asked the technician to recalibrate the glass to remove her wrinkles and add a soft focus glow. She argued that for $2,000, the reflection should be an upgrade over her actual face. The installer had to explain that he was a glazier, not a plastic surgeon or a Photoshop filter. Do you think we have reached a point where people cannot distinguish between a real-life reflection and a social media filter? 45. Daylight savings. Time is a nightmare for everyone, but one homeowner in Oregon blamed his microwave for his own confusion. He called a repair service because the clock on the appliance did not automatically update, claiming the device was gaslighting him about the time. He was convinced that the microwave was part of a government conspiracy to make him late for work. The technician simply pressed the clock button and adjusted it in 5 seconds. Yet the man still demanded a diagnostic report on the temporal glitch. 46. Window tinting is meant to reduce glare, but a customer in Phoenix complained that the film was too effective. He was angry that his living room did not feel like a sun-scorched desert anymore, arguing that the tinting was stealing the vitamin D from his furniture. He expected the film to filter out the heat while keeping the blinding, eye-searing brightness exactly the same. The installer tried to explain how light works, but the guy just kept pointing at his dimmed carpet and crying about the lost aesthetic of a heat stroke. 47. An irrigation specialist in Georgia received a frantic call about a sprinkler system that refused to turn off. It turned out the homeowner had buried the control box under 3 feet of decorative mulch and then forgot it existed. When the technician dug it up and showed him the settings, the man complained that the box should have used GPS to alert his phone that it was being suffocated. He honestly believed his garden equipment had a moral obligation to scream for help before it started flooding the driveway. 48. Ceiling fans have a tiny switch to change the direction of the blades for summer or winter, but this was a bridge too far for a homeowner in Ohio. She filed a complaint claiming her fan was inhaling the air rather than blowing it down. Instead of flipping the switch, she argued that the fan had developed a personality disorder and was trying to suffocate her family. The electrician spent more time explaining basic aerodynamics than actually fixing the problem. Would you be embarrassed if a professional had to explain the concept of up and down to you? 49. Robot vacuums are smart, but they're not miracle workers. A woman in San Francisco complained that her high-end Roomba was lazy because it kept getting stuck on her pile of discarded laundry. She argued that for $1,000, the vacuum should be able to fold the clothes or at least climb over them like a tiny mountain climber. She felt the AI was intentionally avoiding the messy parts of her room out of spite. It is fascinating how quickly we start attributing human emotions to a plastic disc that just wants to suck up dust. 50. An HVAC specialist in Nevada received a complaint that the air conditioning was making the air feel too thin to breathe. The homeowner was convinced the unit was sucking the oxygen out of the room to save on electricity. In reality, she just was not used to the lack of humidity and felt a little lightheaded from the sudden comfort. She demanded the tech install an oxygen tank to the ventilation system to make the house feel more like a tropical rainforest. Have you ever been so uncomfortable with comfort that you invented a medical crisis? 51. A plumber in Maryland once drove 40 miles because a homeowner claimed her sink was possessed and would not stop running. Upon arrival, the technician found the faucet handle was simply turned to the on position. The woman argued that she never touched it and that the sink should have sensed her absence and shut itself off automatically. She was genuinely upset that her basic, manual faucet lacked the artificial intelligence to save her from her own forgetfulness. If our sinks start making decisions for us, where does the responsibility of the human end? 52. In a quiet suburb of Illinois, a man filed a formal complaint against a repair shop because his new refrigerator was making a soft humming noise. He claimed the sound was a form of psychological warfare designed to keep him awake at night. When the technician arrived, he realized the man had no furniture or curtains in his kitchen, creating a literal echo chamber for a perfectly normal compressor. Rather than buying a rug, the homeowner demanded the company engineer a silent motor that ignored the laws of mechanical vibration. 53. A professional house painter in Florida was threatened with a lawsuit because the wet paint on a front door ruined a customer's expensive silk dress. The homeowner was furious that the paint did not come with a force field to prevent people from leaning against it while it was drying. Even though there was a giant bright orange sign saying wet paint, she argued that the warning was too aggressive and distracted her from noticing the door. Some people really expect the entire world to be padded in bubble wrap for their own personal safety. 54. Garage door repairmen often deal with the sun. But one guy in Arizona took the frustration to a new level. He called for an emergency repair because his door would only close at night. It turned out the afternoon sun was hitting the safety sensors directly, tricking the system into thinking an invisible giant was standing in the way. Instead of just installing a small piece of cardboard as a sun shield, the man insisted on a full hardware replacement. He believed the garage was being stubborn and required a stern talking to from a professional. 55. We finish with a tech-savvy homeowner who complained that his expensive smart bulbs were all dying at the exact same time. The electrician spent 3 minutes investigating before realizing the man's wife had simply turned off the physical wall switch. Because the power was cut, the app showed the bulbs as offline, which the husband interpreted as a massive hardware failure. He was ready to return $500 worth of lighting because he forgot how a basic light switch works. Is modern technology making us smarter or just more confident in our own confusion? A pro can fix your foundation or your wiring, but no tool on earth can repair a total absence of common sense. From people trying to sue the sun to those washing literal bricks in the dishwasher, these stories prove that some homeowners are living in a completely different dimension. Now tell us the truth in the comments. What is the dumbest repair request you have ever witnessed firsthand? Drop your story below, hit the like button, and subscribe to keep up with the peak of human absurdity.